Hey, welcome back to ZK MasterTech. Today we're going to upgrade the feed accelerator in this S790 from this to this. Prepare to get more out of your combine this harvest with the Sloan Express High Performance Wide Body Feed Accelerator Kit. Proven in over 9,000 combines across South America, this upgrade is now available in the US and it's built to boost performance in corn, soybeans, and small grains. This system replaces your factory feed accelerator with a redesigned wide body version that dramatically improves crop flow into the rotor. The plate and blade layout has been engineered to follow the natural path of the crop, guiding it smoothly through the system instead of forcing it. That smoother transition reduces bunching, lowers rotor load, and helps eliminate the issues that cause vibration and material buildup in the feeder house. In soybeans and small grains, this design minimizes damage to delicate material, helping you protect grain quality and reduce harvest losses. For corn, it's a game changer. The updated blade shape keeps cobs whole and intact as they're delivered evenly into the rotor. That means better threshing, less kernel damage, and fewer impurities in the sample. And because the rotor isn't working as hard to process uneven crop flow, you can see up to a 16% gain in fuel efficiency. Or if you're pushing harder, you might increase your harvest speed by 20 to 30%. That can add up to 2 to 3 more hours of productive harvest time per day. If you're looking for a way to harvest cleaner, faster, and more efficiently, this upgrade from Sloan Express is one of the best moves that you can make. Order online at sloanex.com or click the link in the description below to learn more. Now let me show you how it's done. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is you take off the top inspection door covers on the feeder house here. I got them laid on the tire right here, so we got plenty of room. And then what I like to do is I have some old carpet that I lay on top of here, so you're not laying on that hard metal all day. It's kind of hard on your ribs, so if you got some old carpet, throw it up on the feeder house. You'll thank me later. And here we've got the feed accelerator kit all laid out, ready to rock. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take each support off the feed accelerator, and I've got the shop dog hooked up today to make this process a whole lot easier, because I'll be able to remove that feed accelerator with the wireless remote and it'll hold itself in place, so we won't have to be constantly messing with that belt to lock the feed accelerator into place. So now we can work on taking out all these 15mm bolts. That's just cheating with that shop dog. So come out. Alrighty, I think I set a new world record. Alright, now's a good time to blow this thing off and get that all cleaned up. I'm probably going to blow out all the holes for the threads as well, just to make sure we don't have any dust or debris in our threads, and get that all cleaned up. Good enough. Once you get that cleaned out, you want to make sure that you can move these little hubs on the shaft. So you might have to spray them down with some penetrant oil or something, but this combine's only a year old, so everything seems to be moving like it should, because we'll need to be able to move those to get all the bolts lined up. Okay, once you can get those moving, then the next step is find the keyway of the shaft, and we're going to put it at 12 o'clock. And then when it's at 12 o'clock, if you go up right here, it's the next hole back right here. So if the keyway is at 12 o'clock, then this hole should be about 11 o'clock. And remember that, because that is the first bolt that we're going to put on the first panel. Okay, so we got the first cover here, and you know it's the first one because it's got 4 holes, countersunk holes across the top. Okay, so the first one that we're going to put in, you find this little notch that's kind of cut in right here, and then this hole right here is a little bit smaller than the rest of the holes, so that's going to help align everything up. And it's got a small hole on each end, and then when you look at this is going to be on the right side of the machine. And then you'll have this piece which kind of swoops towards the center upward. And that's how you know the orientation of it. And I'll show you once I get it in there so you know exactly how that's supposed to go. So now I'm going to hoist that thing in there and get some countersunk bolts started in those holes. And this hole right here is going to line up with the hole that I was talking about according to where the keyway is. And just for reference, when I'm referring to the right or left side of the machine, it's as you are sitting in the operator seat looking forward. So this would be to your right, this would be to your left. We're going to put the first one in. Let me grab this out of your way. Set into place. Okay. There's our notch. Okay, once you get the cover in place, here I've got that hole that I marked, and that is where our small hole is going to go, and we have the little notch right here on the cover, and then we're going to use one of these countersunk Allen bolts and get that started. And you can use an alignment punch too if you need to get those holes lined up. It is kind of tight with that first bolt. All right, and then we have another small hole on this side and a notch. So on this side, I definitely needed an alignment punch to move this cover down to get this hole aligned, to get that screw in. Let's try to get those in position. Oh, there we go. Yeah, each hole should line up with a threaded hole in the hub. Look how far we're going to have to move this one. Pretty far. So if you were dealing with an older combine, you would definitely want to lubricate that up and get to where those can move really freely. This one's not terrible, but if you had an older combine with a bunch of hours on it, that might be hard to get that thing to move. So make sure you do that ahead of time. So I got the outer ends in. Now we're just going to go on this line, the same line that those bolts are. And these holes have the smaller hole too, and that's going to help us align as well. And we're going to get those, try to get those lined up perfectly. When that's lined up, those bolts will just barely go through there, which is good. So it's going to do aligning things. That's what we want. That one just plopped right in. We'll take it. How about this one? This one looks like it needs to move. No, that went right in too. We'll take it. Now we're going to tighten these down, and it should hold everything in place where it needs to be. So it doesn't tell you to do this, but I'm going to kind of tighten evenly across, slowly. Because if I put a whole bunch of pressure down here and clamp this piece down, it's going to be harder for this piece to line itself up. So I'm just going to snug them all the way down. So I can tell where this bolt's hitting. It's trying to move this piece right here. And if I had this one too tight, it might not move where it needs to go. I'm just going to get those hand tight here. I'm not going crazy, not putting any serious torque on those. I just want to have enough torque to where it's going to seat it down and move the cover and the hub to put them in the correct alignment. So I definitely wanted to mention this page right here. So before you would want to get started, you want to evaluate all the thread holes in the hubs. So if you were taking the original supports out, and let's say you had one bolt that came out kind of hard, or it damaged the threads, now's the time to fix those threads. And if it's not too bad, you can just tap the hole out, and it's going to be an M10 by 1.5 tap. But if the hole's damaged really bad, you would have to go ahead and put a helicoil in, and you get an M10 by 1.5 helicoil kit, which will come with a drill bit and a tap. And then you would drill out the hole, and then you would thread in the tap that comes with the kit, and then you would insert in the helicoil, which that is going to be your new thread, and install the helicoil, and then you'd have a brand new hole with an M10 by 1.5 thread. So I went and found our helicoil kit. So this is a kind of kit that you would need. It doesn't come with a drill bit, but it comes with the tap and the starter. You put the helicoil on this tool here, and it tells you the drill bit size is 13/32. So we would drill the hole out to 13/32, and then we would tap it with this tap, and then we'd be able to install our helicoil. So this is how it goes on the installer right here. See how you got this little tab right here? So it catches on there like that, and that allows you to thread it in the hole. Then once you get it threaded in the hole and it's flush with the hole, you want to have it sunk in just a little under flush. And then you see this little cut relief, I should say, right here. So once you get this installed in the hole, you're going to take a chisel and you're going to hit this piece and break this little chunk off right here. See that little cut relief? That's where this little piece, it's just kind of shaped like a J, that's going to break off, and now you have a perfectly threaded hole. See, it'll thread right onto the countersunk bolts that we have. But you wouldn't want that piece in there because your bolt would bottom out, and then it would start pushing the thread out of the hole. So it's really important that you break that little piece off so you can thread your bolt all the way through the helicoil. So now, once I got the line of bolts in on the small hole, we're going to go ahead and just start all the other holes in the cover, and we're going to run them down to where we have a small gap. Basically, we don't want the taper of the bolt touching the cover, right? So we can wiggle, so we can move it a little bit if we have to later. So we're just going to put a bolt in every single hole, and I'm just going to run them down to right there. All right, once you get all the screws and all the holes, then you can go ahead and loosen up those first set of bolts that go in through the small holes. So it'll allow us to be able to align all the other covers on the feed accelerator. So go ahead and loosen those up now. So I rotated the cover to where it's facing the rotor because we're getting ready to put the side seals on. But I noticed there was some bean stems kind of stuck in here where this bearing goes, and if I put that side seal on there, this stuff won't ever come out, and I don't want that getting into our bearing, so I'm trying to dig these out to where we don't have a bunch of bean stems packed into our bearing housings. So the next step is to rotate it to where the cover's on the back side there, and then we're going to take this side seal right here and we're going to pull this piece, slide it out, and then we're going to insert this into here. Oh, I think I got it the wrong way. Yeah, so you want to have it like this when you slide it in there. So you just gotta kind of work it and get it in there. So one thing I noticed when installing this side seal cover is if once you get it in there and it's really hard to get it to turn, I had to loosen up all my bolts, and then I had to kind of smack this cover back so it wasn't clamped onto that hub to get a little bit of a gap right here so it's not so tight against this hub, and then that will allow you to get this piece in there, and then you have to turn it 180 degrees. All right, so once you rotate that 180 degrees to where the opening is facing forward, then we're going to slide in the drawer, they call it, like that. Okay, oh, now I'm going to rotate this around. So there's going to be a small hole here that we got to line up to put a screw in. So I might have to turn it back and forth to get those holes to line up there. So we're going to rotate that around enough to where we can get the small hole in the plastic side cover to where it can line up with that small hole, and then we're going to use one of these Phillips screws to go in the hole right there. And we'll thread that in with a screwdriver. So when you get that side seal cover, that opening, whenever you get it turned, it should be almost exactly 180 degrees. The opening of the cover should be 180 degrees away from your big metal cover here. And then you might have to wiggle it back and forth in order to get that screw hole to line up. So we got that side in, so now I'm just going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I bet it's about right there. I bet you it's one of those things, some of them it just glides right in, some of them it fights you. But this one, just not liking me. Oh, I think I did it. Oh, I did it. There we go. Rotate around to that hole there. There it is right there. The screw started in there, and kind of got to hold that side seal kind of into place. It fits a little looser in on this side. There. So now we're going to start stacking the other covers on. So I had to rotate it around, and then I had to scoot this cover to hit the back side of that other cover. I tried to go to this side, and the holes wouldn't line up. So if you scoot it on back, you'll finally get the holes to line up. And I'm going to put these first row bolts in here. And there is a seal on the end of this that this other cover butts up into. Yeah, alignment punch is definitely an essential tool for this job. Okay, so I got the second cover in. So we're building it up going this direction. You just want to make sure that these are swooped upward towards the center right here. That's kind of a good indication of that you got it in there orientated correctly, left and right. So now I'm gonna turn it and we'll get the final third panel in. All right, so these new kits that you can get have a rubber seal on them. The first ones that came out, they actually they came with a tube of sealer that you had to apply on here, and it was a kind of sticky mess, so they went ahead and updated it to a rubber style seal, and you don't have any of the mess of the sealer, so really nice update on that. It's time for the final cover. There we go. There we go. Start some bolts. I'm just going to get some bolts in the holes that I can see at the moment. All right, so I'm just going to get all the bolts on this cover put into place and use my alignment punch to get it all aligned. Okay, so when you're getting this last panel in, you might notice, a gap right here in between the two covers here. And what you want to do is you want to tighten the center row of bolts right here, which is going to force that cover straight down on the hubs, which will allow you to line up the very bottom holes a lot easier, and it'll take up some of that gap. So I've got the center bolts on this last cover tightened down a little bit to seat that cover. So then when I rotate this around and I do the other covers and I tighten that center row of bolts, it should clamp them all together to where there's no gaps. Oh, I forgot a bolt. You get a bolt in there. But see, we kind of got a little bit of a gap right here. So when I go through and I tighten the center row of bolts, it's just going to start clamping them all together. So I'm going to go through and get all the center row of bolts tightened down to try to get them all clamped together well. So I was finally able to get all the bolts in the cover, and I haven't got them super clamped down yet. I got them clamped down enough just to where I could get all the bolts aligned. What it said to go ahead and tighten all the bolts down, torquing them all down, but and then putting these little screws into our plastic side seal covers. But I think it's a good idea to at least go ahead and get the screws started in the hole. You don't have to run them down tight, but I think it's a good idea, because if we go to start torquing those down, it's going to clamp onto those hubs, and you're not going to be able to move that side seal cover at all, once you get those clamped down. So I'm at least just getting a few threads started in these screws before we go to clamping that thing down, because I don't want to clamp that all down and then not be able to get those screws in. But I don't have them tight enough to where I don't have any wiggle, right? So I've got screws there. Just checking them here. All right, so I got to put two more of those screws in. And so far, they all seem to be lining up okay. You know, we're just threading into a plastic hole, so we're not like actually having to line threads up. I just want to get those kind of started first. And notice I'm not using power tools on those Phillips bolts. I'm putting them in by hand because I don't want to strip those out, because maybe later in the future you want to be able to remove those for a repair or something. And man, if you strip that Phillips head out, you'd have a really hard time getting those out. Okay, I got all the screws started in the side plates, the Phillips screws. Now I'm going to go through and we're going to tighten the center bolts on the cover that has the 4 holes, the one that we started with. And we're going to torque down these bolts to 72 Newton meters, it says, but that's 53 foot-pounds. Okay, so I'm just going to use an electric ratchet to kind of cinch it down first. And remember, tightening these center bolts is what's going to force all these covers together and close the gaps. Now I'm going to take an actual torque wrench and I'm going to set it to 53.1 foot-pounds. I took the torque wrench to 72 Newton meters, and then I just changed the units to foot-pounds, and then it gives me the exact foot-pound number that we need to have right there. So 53 foot-pounds on an M10 fastener is quite a bit in my opinion, but yeah, that's a lot for an M10. Whew. Okay. Now we're going to rotate over to the next cover and we'll tighten the center row of bolts for the next cover as well, and then for the next one, and then that should seat them all together and make a tight seal. Okay, so I got all the center bolts torqued down, and look at our gap. So we're tight against the seal now, all the way across on each seam. See? See, we want to take, you know, that cover's sitting on that hub like this. We don't want to tighten it down like this. We want to tighten the center bolt to get it to go straight down. All right, so we force each piece straight down towards the center, then that will take out that gap that you have and your seals will seal tight. So now that I've verified all my seal gaps are good, I'm going to go ahead and torque all the rest of the bolts, and I'm just going to do it one row at a time all the way around, and then that will be done, and then I can torque the small little Phillips screws all the way around to seat those the plastic side covers, and then we can move on to the next step. I've got all the bolts torqued and the little Phillips screws tightened down, and you definitely want to double check the torque on those bolts, because I went through them all twice, and some of them did turn again once I had some other bolts tightened down, so you definitely want to double check those. Okay, so the smooth wear plates are going to mount on the ends, and the best way to identify this is you've got this double square hole right here, and those are going to mount here and here. So you'll have this little bracket sticking out, and a little fatter of a bracket, and then there's a bracket with 2 holes. So it's going to sit in there like this, and then we're going to put the carriage bolts with the Loctite through the holes with the lock nuts. And that's how we fit those on there. And then I'll get the other two bolts in, but there's 3 that smooth wear plates that you put on this right side. So I've got all the smooth wear plates mounted on the right hand side here, and that's the way that they're supposed to look. I just have them loosely fit in there. I'm going to use a double box flex ratchet wrench just to get them seated down, and then we're going to go through and torque them to 88.5 foot-pounds, because the spec is 120 Newton meters, which is 88.5 foot-pounds. A flex ratchet wrench works pretty good right here. You could use a normal 18mm ratchet wrench, it'd get in there too. I'm going to torque them to 88 foot-pounds. And on these, unless you have a torque adapter or a crow's fit that'll fit in there, that's about the only way you're going to get a torque wrench on it. I'm going to tighten it up by hand with this long ratchet. And I'm going to get it good and tight, and it'll be just fine. And then I'll torque the rest. So now we're getting the smooth wear strips on the left hand side, and they go on just like that. So there's only 2 bolts that you use on this side. So you got like kind of a pointy end, and the pointy end goes down, and they go on like that. The squared end goes towards the top. Okay. And there's 3 of them on this left side as well. Torqued. Okay, got the left side all torqued. The smooth wear strips should look just like this. Now we're going to put in the serrated wear strips, and we've got 6 of them on the right hand side and 6 on the left hand side. So they go on there just like so. And they can only go one way. They only fit one way. So now that I got all those bolts started, I'm gonna run them down. The swivel socket's a little bit more useful on these ones right here. So once you get them all installed, they should look like this. So now I'll go through and torque each one to 88.5 foot-pounds. So now we're gonna lay in the left hand serrated strips. All right. So I'll get all those on and then I'll snug them down and torque them. Torque these to 88 foot-pounds. Yep. And it's all done. Look how awesome this thing is. That is going to dramatically improve the feeding into the rotor. I just love the way that's designed. Wow, what a difference. I'm excited to see what this thing does this harvest. I'm going to ride in this combine and just see what it does. I'm pretty excited to see this thing run.